Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today at the Punla Coffee Table. We're going to be recapping our October 2023 trip to Bicol today, and I really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to spend some time with us. So in October of 2023, we took a trip to Bicol in the Philippines. We started about 6 a.m. in Houston, Texas on October 1st. And it's a long ways to the Philippines. We traveled to Hawaii and then Guam and then to Manila in the Philippines. It's a whole lot of ocean as you fly across the Pacific. We then took another plane in the morning to Bicol, to the Legazpi airport, and then another 2-hour plus long drive from Legazpi to Dagon, where we stayed. And we arrived about 9 a.m. on October 3rd, about 38 hours of travel time. So it's almost 2 days to get there. We arrived on Tuesday. That evening, we went to one of our new churches in Sinai. It was Pastor Lorca's church. It's one of the churches that we helped build during the COVID craziness. It's hard to believe that we had been more than 5 years since we'd been to the Philippines when we went this past October, but it was really good to be there, and we were very thankful for the opportunity that we had. And this is a closer look at the church there in Sinai. It's a very nice concrete structure. You can see my kids, my wife, and Pastor Lorca. The next day, we drove to Goa. This was meant to kind of be our recovery day, which was Wednesday, October 4th. We met with two of our pastors in Goa, Pastor Elijah and Pastor Jaime. And then the next day, we started our real struggle of a trip. We got up real early, around 6 a.m. and drove north to Taban, to one of our new churches. Again, it was built during the COVID pandemic, meeting with Pastor Inocencio and his wife. And this is just a couple pictures that you can see of that new church building. It's beautiful, lots of potential. We had a quick snack with them, and you can see my wife and my children. And I want you to notice in the lower right-hand picture, there's kind of I guess it's a loft space above my wife's head, and that's where some of the church workers actually sleep. So it gives you kind of a impression of what their living conditions are. Now, the left picture, you can see kind of the window on the partial second story of this little thatch and bamboo hut. On Thursday, the next place we went from Taban over to San Ramon. San Ramon is another one of our new churches that was built during the COVID pandemic. This is Pastor Duca and his wife's location, his beautiful location, back in the trees. And in fact, it was just a miracle. When they bought this property. We've been looking for property for them for several years, and then this one came available for a fraction of the price people had been asking for property. So look at the inside, and if you look at the lower right-hand picture, you can kind of get a feel for the really amazing location that they have found. You might not be able to see it in the picture, but in the center, in the distance, is a new high school. It's maybe 200 yards away maybe from the church, but when they put through the concrete road that is planned, this location will be very accessible. And again, they're right next to a national high school, which gives them access to young students and their parents. And so I think this church has great potential for the future. After we met with the Ducas, we went back to Goa, Tagon, and then all the way to Hanawan. Pastor Elijah was with us, and we decided to go take a look at our home in Hanawan to see if it would be suitable for hosting hosting children. Essentially, we're planning to try to start an orphanage there with the help of Pastor Elijah. So we looked at the location and walked around and basically did some logistic planning to see what the potential might be in the future. And after we finished that, we went back to Dagon. Well, actually, I had to go back to Goa and drop off Pastor Elijah and his wife, and then back to Dagon for the night. A long first day, Thursday, October 5th. Next day was Friday, October 6th. Luckily, we didn't have to travel anywhere because we were having our pastor's breakfast at a church, at Pastor Azul Serrano's church in Dagon. You can see just a few pictures from that event. I'm not sure how many pastors were there. These pictures were actually taken after several had to leave, but it ended up being a pastors and wives meeting. We didn't know the wives were interested, but they asked if they could attend, and I was so glad that we did. Judy and I shared some about ourselves and things that we hadn't always told our partners so they could better understand us. A lot of things had changed over the last 5 years, and it was an opportunity for us to get reacquainted, talk about what the future might hold, and it was just a great morning and early afternoon of fellowship. And again, this is just some picture of some of the pastors and the wives, along with my kids, that were there that morning and afternoon. It's probably about 70% of the pastors that were there at the beginning. The next morning, we got up early and drove the coastal road from Dagon down to Tiwi and then on to Tabaco. Tabaco is one of our locations where we have a lot of students in our college program. Just some pictures from that morning. Several of the students were able to come, even though a lot of them had classes on that Saturday morning. We were able to share, about ourselves and about, how we've learned from our mistakes, and we'd like them to learn from our mistakes. This is the girls' side of the room. They kind of segregated themselves. The other side of the room was several boys. And here's another picture. You can kind of see most of the kids that were there that morning. Several of them had to leave because they had classes and other things before we took this picture. And Pastor Daniel gave us some fresh fruit for some breakfast, and it was just a wonderful time of fellowship with these students and with Pastor Cabrera. After Tabaco, we went around the volcano Mayon over to Palungi. Palungi is another one of the locations we have a lot of students. We arrived there about 1 p.m. And you can see some pictures of some of the students that were there. This Ray was one of our former students, was there to kind of just tell us how he had been, how his direction was changed by our program in a way that gave him kind of some focus on what he wanted to do with his life when he was going back to college. Ray's a good friend, and it was nice to hear how he'd learned from some of the tools and the training modules that we had prepared in a way that actually prepared him for his professional job. And in fact, the things that we were helping our students with were things that he now helps students with and new employees. And it was a lot of fun to hear from him. We spent a couple hours there, and here's just some of the students and the pastors. Pastor Tim Rapilio and his brother Sandy and Daniel Santos. It was just a great time together. We had not had a chance to see them in so long, and so many of our former students and new students. It was just a great time of fellowship that Saturday afternoon. So after we were done in Palungi, and I think I should maybe back up just a little bit. October is a really rainy time of the year in the Philippines, and when we started out early Saturday morning, it was pouring rain, and my kids were kind of talking to me, and it's been a long time since I've been in the Philippines, so I was a little nervous about driving. I'm the driver. And I told my kids that God had told me it wasn't going to rain when we were driving, because I was nervous about driving in the rain, especially the heavy rain on these roads. When we got into the car to leave Tagon, the rain stopped. And we arrived in Tabaco about 9 o'clock that morning. We got out of the car and just got into the church, and the skies opened up and it started pouring. We were there for about 2 hours or so, maybe 3 hours. I can't quite remember. And as we were saying our goodbyes and getting ready to leave, the rain stopped again. And we drove over to Palungi, and we got a little lost, actually. My driving is sometimes a little challenged. And as we were looking around in the streets of Palungi and finally found the church, as we pulled into their churchyard, the skies opened up and it started pouring rain again. And then we were there for another maybe 2 or 3 hours before we headed to Ocampo, which is what you see on the map in front of you. We got to Ocampo about 6 p.m. And the whole time we drove, it wasn't raining. And we got to Ocampo, and while we were inside meeting with Pastor Limar and his new church, it rained again. And then it let up when we needed to drive home that evening. So again, God is amazing, and he sometimes gives us glimpses. Like I said, I was nervous and I was praying that it wouldn't rain, and I knew I got a message from God, and it turned out exactly the way I told my kids it was going to, and I thank God for that. So again, we got to Ocampo about 6 p.m. that night. This is just a taste of some of the music, and all these churches have just amazing music. The kids learn, and I just wanted to give you a quick little taste of that. A lot of stringed instruments, piano, keyboards. It's really amazing considering where these churches began, that they even could have the facility to do such a thing. There's a couple of our students you see on the screen that were giving us some testimonies of really what it is meant to be part of our program to them. And it's really encouraging for me personally to see that the kids are actually being encouraged by just being in our program. Our program is just a scholarship program, but it has given these kids some confidence, and it has just been an amazing thing to be part of, that God has been using us for. And you can see us talking. One thing is pretty obvious. Judy and I look pretty disheveled in this picture. It's been a long day. It's really, really hot and really, really humid. But it was an amazing, amazing experience from start to finish, and this very tiring day. And then obviously when we finished in Ocampo, we drove back to Dagon, arriving about 10 p.m. So it was a long day. It's about a 16-hour day. And by the time we get back and everyone gets bathed and ready for bed, it's well into the next day. The next morning was Sunday, and luckily we were staying in Dagon for Sunday services. So we went again to Pastor Razul's church in Dagon, and this is just a picture of Judy and I sharing. We gave the message that morning, and you just get a taste of the people that were there and sharing in some of the things that we were speaking with them about. And this is us speaking, and I joked with I can't actually speak without my wife. My wife kind of fills in the gaps when I speak poorly. So Judy was there helping me every step of the way, and I greatly appreciate her help. Next picture is just some of the students that were there in Tagon. These are all students that are part of our college program, and they were sharing a musical message with us, and they each gave us some testimony of what was going on in their lives, and how being part of the scholarship program has impacted them, not just financially, but from an encouragement perspective. So later on Sunday, we moved up into Goa to Pastor Elijah's church for afternoon services about 2 p.m. And again, we presented the message, and there's just a picture of what Pastor Elijah's church looks like. And again, all the music that's going on, the violins, and it's just an amazing thing to see. In fact, my children even put on a musical number. It was kind of not planned, but it was beautiful. And then there's even a cake here. The cake was for my twins, whose birthday, and one of our ex-students actually made the cake for them. So this is just some more of the people that were there that day. This really amazingly encouraging time with Pastor Elijah and his church in Goa. The next day, we took our really big trip. We got up really, really early before the sun was up. This is Monday, October 9th, and drove about 3.5 hours, I guess, to Sorsogon City. We met with Pastor Joel at his location. You can see his outdoor location. And then we drove across town to meet with Pastor Alex. Met him about 11 a.m. He took us out to dinner, and it was near this new athletic complex. It's a really bad picture. It's my picture. I apologize. It looks like a Roman Colosseum, which is kind of interesting. They're going to have the Philippine Olympic trials there this coming year, so it's kind of a nice and fun thing to do. So after we had dinner with Pastor Alex, we went further to the south to Pastor Vidar's location in Irisine, and here's some pictures from that with Pastor Vidar and his family at his location. That's the location that he is in the process of building on, and it was a great time. We don't usually get this far south, and so it was a great opportunity for us to spend some time with Larry at his location, and I really appreciate his hospitality and learning more about what his plans were for his ministry there in the Irisine area. After that, we drove back to the north and over to Pilar, arriving about 4:30 p.m. We met with Pastor Ronnie at his church, some of our former students, as well as some of his members that were looking for some information on some other things that we do as a ministry. So we spent some of our evening there with Ronnie, and then we drove from Pilar over to Donsol to spend the night with one of Judy's aunts. The trip from Pilar to Donsol is pretty quick. It's maybe 15 minutes normally, but we hadn't been there in a while, and we got a little lost. We ended up there's several different paths you can take. There's about 3 roads. We took the road that we thought was the primary road, and it's a very steep mountain road. And as we were going up, we went up, maybe about 3,000 yards. And then the road was basically not there anymore. They were doing construction, and there were big boulders on the road. They actually told us that we could wait, and they were going to move the boulders out of the way so we could go. But there was another truck coming at us, and it was only one lane. I say one lane. I had roughly 4 inches on either side of our van, on each side, with very steep drop-offs on either side. It's at night, and I don't see well at night, so we had to back down the mountain, and it's a very curvy road with essentially very little margin for error, because if you were to fall off, there's no AAA. No one's going to come and help you. So it was very stressful, to say the least, as we backed down. Eventually got turned around and got back on the other road and made our way over to Donsol, arriving about 7 p.m. But it's just travel in the Philippines. It is. There are moments that will take your breath away, is the way my sister Joy often refers to it. The next morning, we got up and drove to Piodaran, meeting with one of Judy's aunts, and there's actually a mission church that we were working with in both of the locations, Donsol and Piodaran. And then after we met with the aunt, we moved on. We went further to Owas, to one of the churches we had not been to, and wanted to give you guys just a taste of what driving is like in the Philippines. And let me just let you watch this short video. It was drizzling just a little bit, not bad rain. It wasn't impairing our drive or anything, but you can see that the road is a little rough. We're bouncing quite a bit. You're right on the edge of the universe. You can see it drops off pretty steep, and then the video doesn't do this justice, but the steep incline of these roads is something you have to see. It would be very difficult to walk up this road. I don't know what the degree is, but I know it is well beyond any standard in America, and that's just what the road is like, and many of the roads are like that in the Philippines. When we got over to OAS, we met with Pastor Dolan and his family and several other mission pastors, mission pastor from Pio Duran, actually, that we had just been at. So it was a great opportunity to get to see their site and see what their plans are for their ministry. We even had time for about an hour at the beach. And so my kids got a little bit of a break from our trip so they could enjoy the water a little bit before we had to make the very long drive back to Tagon. And this road is a little interesting. There's 3 areas of OAS, and I had been told previously that there were certain areas of this province that we should not go into, and I guess I'd forgotten. And as we were driving across the central portion where you see the zigzaggy line, we were stopped by the military and told that we really shouldn't be going that way. And they were very kind, and we were able to get directed in the direction we should go. And I think it was safe. Obviously, there's some armed conflict going on in the areas, so there is some danger. And we were in several areas like that on this trip, but it adds a little spice to life. So the next morning we got up and we drove into Naga. This is Wednesday, October 11th. We had to do some business related things with our banking. So we went in, spent several hours, had very little success. Banking in the Philippines is always a bit of a challenge. And then we drove back to Tagon and to San Rafael, where we spent the evening at Pastor Zaldi's church, presenting. And this, again, is another one of the churches that we built during the COVID pandemic time. And it was a great opportunity. It's still a work in progress. It's beautiful inside. Great capacity. It's really near the National Highway, so it's a great location. And we had a great time with his family. They great music, and I had a chance to again share the message. And then we made it back to Tagon again, maybe around 9 p.m., probably closer to 10. Again, a very long day. Thursday, we went back in to Naga, which is the large city in the region, and to Pili to meet with Pastor Victorino at his church. And here's some pictures of his church. And that's Pastor Victorino and his wife and one of his mission pastors with us. After that, we drove down to Iriga. Well, actually, I guess we stopped in Bao on the way. Bao is another one of the churches that we built during the pandemic years, and it's a great location near the National Highway as well. Pastor Arcel Bustanera is the pastor here, and it was kind of a ritual over the last 9 years, and we would always get a Christmas picture from Arcel, and there was always a typhoon or super typhoon that time of year, and it had crushed the church. It was always made out of bamboo and thatch. And about, I guess it's almost 4 years ago now that we built this church with him. And now when he sends me those Christmas pictures, they have a building and a safe refuge from the storm. And that's something God can do, and has used people like us to make a difference in so many of these locations, giving them a structure that will withstand the severe weather that they experience. And I'm just so thankful for God to be able to be part of the effort that gives them some safety in those circumstances. And it's a refuge for the people in their communities as well. Here's my girls with one of their students. This girl, and I don't remember her name, became a Christian recently, and her parents basically abandoned her because of her faith. And so now she lives here at the church with Pastor Arcel and his wife Jocelyn. So after Bow, we went on to Iriga, arriving there about 11:30 in the morning, and we went to the Ezer Foundation, and they gave us quite a performance. I'll give you a taste. Hopefully the sound is good. So the Ezer Foundation actually has the largest orchestra in the Philippines. They're former students that have lived there. Essentially, it's an orphanage, and the kids that have grown up there learn instruments, and periodically they all get together, and it's about a 400-piece orchestra. So they were just giving us a taste that morning. It was really great to spend some time with them there. And from there, we went just a little ways down the road to what is the oldest Baptist church in this area of the Philippines, in Iriga City. And these are just some of the students that we met with that morning. I actually thought we were just meeting with Pastor Nelson for a few minutes to see some of the repairs that we had helped them with on this building. It was built more than 70 years ago, so it was in need of some repair. And when we got there, the church was full, and not just with students, but these are all pastors, some of which had come more than 6.5 hours to spend just an hour or so with us. I find that incredibly humbling that someone would make that much of an effort just to have a short conversation with us. So Judy and I spoke for a little while, sharing some things about us and about what God is asking us to do. And then Judy spent time talking to the pastors, and I spent one-on-one time with each of the students before we went on to Pinit, which was our last stop of the day, about 5 p.m. Pinit was the very first church that we worked with in the Philippines. When we started, what is almost 9 years ago now, I guess it is 9 years ago now, we didn't know any churches in the Philippines that we could work with. The Philippines is mostly Catholic, and we are not Catholic ourselves, and we did not know any Bible teaching churches in the area. And during our first medical mission trip there in 2015, my wife and her sisters found this church in Pinit, and Pastor Nelson, and the rest is really history. God led us to a place where we could have partners. And here's just some pictures from that evening as we talked to so many students. And this was a very emotional evening for us. One of our students had died of cancer just a couple months earlier, and she was special. Eden was a very, very special person to us and to everyone in this room. And her family was not Christian, and because of her death, her mother has now been baptized as a member of this church. And in fact, I have her picture here. She's in the center in the black and white skirt and black top. And she told me that the only reason she's there is because she saw the difference in her daughter. And she wanted what Eden had. And so now she is a fully devoted follower of Jesus because of Eden. And it brings tears to my eyes every time I think of Eden, because she is was such a wonderful person. And when we first started, she was pretty, I won't say she was angry, but she didn't like the fact that we asked them to go to church. We forced them to go to church, actually, as part of our program. But after about a year of going to Pastor Nelson's church, she was baptized and was so active in the church. She loved Jesus with everything. Everything was about Jesus as it is. I remember her telling me the fact that she was so thankful to us for giving her the opportunity and forcing her to hear about the real Jesus, and that she was so thankful that God had used us and made a way for us to have a relationship. And I loved Eden. She was a beautiful inside and out, and I mourn her today. But if I know where she is, and I'm grateful to God for that, and I'm even more grateful for the testimony that she had. and how it has positively impacted so many people, including her mother. So it was a late night, and then we went our way back to Tagon again, arriving around 9 p.m. and trying to recover for our next day. On Friday was supposed to be our day off, and I was convinced that we should go to the beach. Of course, we did not go to a close beach. We picked up Pastor Elijah and his family, and we went about 2.5, 3 hours to a beach near Presentation, and it's a pebble beach. It's actually beautiful. These stones, the picture doesn't do it justice. They're like polished jade type stones. They're beautiful greens and blues, and it's a steep walk. You can see the stairs that you have to go up and down to get to the beach, and there's actually a cave, a water cave just around the corner. And there's just a couple of really amazing things at this beach. The stream you see on the right is actually fresh water coming off the mountain, and it's cold. And here you are in the Philippines at the equator. It's really, really hot, right next to the ocean, which is really, really hot. And then you put your feet in that water, and it's really cold. The water is probably 40 degrees, so it was amazing. Not to mention, my pictures don't do it justice. As you look across this bay, you can see three major volcanoes. There's Isaro, then Iriga, and then Mayon, and you can even see Buluzon even further to the south. And Mayon's actually erupting while we were there, so it was. We could only see smoke from the distance that we were at, but it was just an amazing picture on the horizon, and I'm so thankful to God that I can see his power in the world and know that he actually cares about us. He's the maker of everything. He's the ultimate power, yet he cares about us. And this was just a great day of rest for us, even though it was still tiring. The next day we took our longest trip, and this is to the far side of Naga, to a place called Port Junction. And you can see from my zigzagging of my line, we got really lost. And luckily, Pastor Edison came and picked us up, or I would never have found my way, because the roads we were normally would have taken were completely washed out or under construction. And let me give you a taste of what the drive looked like going into Port Junction. Again, a really nice, smooth, and that is a 2-lane road. We call it the two-way, one-way road in the Philippines, and that's Pastor Edison in the red car ahead of us. So it was an exciting trip, and here is Pastor Reagan and his wife at what is thought to be the oldest Baptist church in the Philippines, in Port Junction. A sad thing about this church, it's really beautiful. He and his wife are great landscapers. He told us that the Philippine government has decided to put in a high-speed train from Manila, the capital, to the regional international airport in Legazpi, and that high-speed train is going to go right through this building. So the government is going to destroy this more than 70, 75-year-old Baptist church, which is a really sad thing for me. But I was really thankful that we were able to get here and see it and spend time with Reagan and his wife at this location at least one more time. After we left Reagan, we drove with Edison to Apad, arriving about 10:30 a.m. We'd never been to Apad before, and again, you can get a taste of what the road looks like. This is, again, a two-way, one-way road, and you can see we're not going to fit, but the locals luckily know the wide spots, and we were able to back up or go forward and make our way around. It's always an experience. And here's a picture of the church in Apad and the pastor and his wife, and it was just a great opportunity to go and see this really beautiful location. Then we followed Edison to his new location, and it's a work in progress. He's just purchased the property. We helped him purchase this property as one of our pandemic projects as well. And the plan is to hopefully build a permanent structure here in the years to come. That's Edison and his wife and their children, and you can see what the location looks like. It's got lots of potential. It's a really beautiful location. It's really close to the main highway. And then we drove to Sapulco. This is not where I thought we were going, because Sapulco's a pretty big area, but we met with Pastor Daniel Decarius in Sapulco. He was at another one of the pandemic churches, I'll call them, that we did during that period. The amazing thing about this location is it's totally beautiful inside. The building you see behind it with the green roof is a high school. So they're literally sharing a wall with the high school. And what's even more amazing at this location, as you're facing the front to the right, they're going to be building a community college. So this location is going to become a major center with students from the high school and from the college, all available to this pastor in an area where there's essentially no churches. So this is just such a amazing location that God led Daniel to, not knowing this was going to take place. And hopefully over the next few years, we'll be able to make the outside look like the inside and make this appealing to the students and their families, and giving Daniel an opportunity to reach them for Jesus. And then we went from Daniel's church in Sapulco down to Libmana and Busak, Libmana, to meet with Pastor Ricky, getting there about 3 p.m. Here's just a picture of some of the people that are there to meet with us. Several pastors came to meet with us, and we spent time with them, hearing about their future plans and sharing some of the things that we were hoping to do in the next few years, meeting with some of the students that we have in our program that are there. You can see some of these in the picture. And then a long drive back. And you might notice something about the line. You notice that we got a little off the normal road, and that is shown that way on purpose, because that's exactly what happened to us. We decided to follow Google. Internet's a kind of a new thing in the Philippines, so we were following the Google recommended path because the traffic was bad. It's at night, and I don't see very good at night. And it was an interesting path. We'll just say that. We came upon a puddle in the road, and normally you wouldn't think that was a really big deal, but you don't know how deep that puddle is, especially in the Philippines. So we waited until another truck went through coming the other direction, and it was okay, and we made our way, and it was an adventure, and adventures are often a lot of fun. And the nice thing about being on a mission trip for God is if you're doing what God wants you to do, you're doing His will, you're safe until He thinks you have accomplished His goals. And then you get to go home. So it's great either way. So we arrived back in Tagan about 7 p.m. It was a tiring day for me. The drives and the roads were challenging, but it was very, very good to see so many of our friends again after such a long time. Sunday, October 15th, we did something that we don't normally do. We spent all day at one location. One of our locations, we have a lot of students. And in fact, over the last few years, we've had, over 100 students cited, maybe even 150 students come through this location. So we wanted to spend time with as many of them as possible. And this is Pastor Jaime's church in Goa. So we did the morning service. Pastor Jaime, gave me some topics that he wanted me to talk about, and then in between the two services, we spent time with our students. And I'll just let you watch the video. again, I was just so thankful to Pastor Jaime for hosting us and giving me and my wife Judy a chance to speak basically all day from about 9 o'clock until about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon with his church and with the students and different types of forums and different topics. It was just a great time for us as a family and as a ministry. On Monday, we had a day off, and then on Tuesday, we started our trip back with a long trip, more than 2 hours from Tagon down to the regional airport. We spent some time with one of Judy's friends at one of the hotels that he has. He's actually a boat captain. And it was a great opportunity. He showed us around for a little while before we got on the plane and flew back to Manila. And then from Manila, back to Guam, Guam to Hawaii, and then Hawaii back to Houston, arriving about 39 hours later at October 18th. We arrived about noon. So it was a long trip. It was, as all mission trips are, it was amazingly fulfilling, satisfying, and encouraging for me personally. And we had an opportunity to see how God was moving in the Philippines and with our partners in ways that is simply the only thing you can say is it's amazing. I'm so thankful to God that He's given us the opportunity to share in these ministries in a way that is beneficial to them and the people they're trying to help, and is amazingly satisfying for us in a way that nothing else in life can be. Serving others is the most satisfying thing you can do with your life. Sharing your money with others is better than spending it on yourself, I promise. And God has been so gracious to us to teach us those lessons and give us the opportunity to see the benefits of those lessons in our lives. And I'm so thankful to you, Lord. And all I can say is amen and amen. I trust you with everything that we have. I want to thank you, the listener, for spending some time with me here at the coffee table, hearing about our amazing trip in October 2023 to the Bicol region. Thank you and God bless.